and welcome to the session on the response of the Estée Lauder companies to the COVID-19 pandemic. We're extremely fortunate to have with us today Mr. Cedric Prouvé, who is the Group President for International for the Estée Lauder companies, a position he has held since 2003. In this job, he's responsible for sales and profits for the company in all markets outside North America, and for all activities that involve the sales affiliates and distributor relationships on a worldwide basis. In that position, he collaborates with all of the company's group and brand presidents and functions to integrate all the global marketing strategies in all international markets. Prior to this position, Mr. Prouvé was the head of the Japanese affiliate of the Estée Lauder companies, and even before that, he managed all of their travel retail business worldwide. Prior to joining the Estée Lauder companies, Mr. Prouvé worked for L'Oréal in sales and management positions in the Americas as well as in the Pacific Rim. He was born in France and educated in both France and the United States. He holds a master's degree in marketing from the University of Kansas, and he completed Harvard's advanced management program. He lives in New York with his wife and children, and we're very grateful to have you with us today, Cedric, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose, and I like the way you say my name. You pronounce it really much better than most people. So hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure joining your program today. So as you all know, the global community is facing both personally and professionally a moment unlike any other. For the Estée Lauder companies, fiscal 2020 has been one of the most complex and challenging years in our history as a public corporation. So today, I will share with you how these complexities and challenges have impacted our business and what we have done to respond, transform, and lead through crisis. I hope the next 30 minutes inspire you to think about your own journey, how you embrace and lead transformative change, and most importantly, how you will rise to the challenges that you will undoubtedly be faced with both in life and in business. So before we get started, we thought we would show you a quick video showcasing the amazing Estée Lauder company's brand portfolio. So very briefly, I just want to say and provide some background on our company. We are the leader in what we call prestige beauty, with nearly $14.3 billion in net sales annually. Prestige beauty meaning that we do not operate in mass or masstige and only deal with luxury prestige distribution. We have a brand portfolio of over 30 prestige brands sold in about 150 countries and territories around the world, with 48,000 employees globally. Just to say a word about categories, on the video you saw a lot of products. And I will speak a little bit about categories later on. We really deal in 4 major categories: skincare, makeup, fragrances, and hair care. We have offices in over 50 locations. We have manufacturing and distribution facilities in over 25 locations, and research and development facilities in over 5 locations, including the US, Europe, and Asia. So as Jose said, as Group President International, I'm responsible for all markets outside of North America and all sales affiliates and distributor relationships worldwide, as well as our travel retail business, which for those who don't know, is really all the business that we do in the duty-free environment, in airports, on board airlines and cruise ships, etc. Now I'd like to say a word about our recent financial results for fiscal 2020. Just to clarify, our fiscal year for Estée Lauder goes from July 1st to June 30th. So we basically completed fiscal 2020 this last June. And fiscal 2020 was truly a year without parallel for us, as we delivered one of our strongest first halves on record. It would have been a record, and navigated with as much agility as possible through an unprecedented pandemic in the second half. So it's really a tale of 2 halves, like many companies who work on the same schedule. The second half also marked a period of profound pain, as tragic events in the United States highlighted the systemic racial injustice that has plagued our society for far too long. In the first half of fiscal 2020, sales rose 14% and adjusted earnings per share climbed 20%. In the second half, despite extensive temporary store closures worldwide as the COVID-19 pandemic took hold, sales fell only 20%, but we were profitable as we quickly pivoted to online to capture consumption and adjusted our cost structure. Specifically in fiscal 2020, online grew 50% and represented 22% of our total sales, which is a 7-point increase compared to last year. In the fourth quarter alone, our online sales surged nearly 100%, so basically doubled in the last quarter. Skincare is doing exceptionally well, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later. We delivered excellent performance across most subcategories. This is really a direct consequence of the consumer behaviors generated by the pandemic impact on lifestyles. Despite the drop in air travel globally in the second half, we have continued to strengthen our leadership in the travel retail business. The channel has pivoted also to localized destinations, particularly in China, as tourism gradually resumed, and represented almost 25% of our sales in fiscal 2020. Geographically, net sales in the Asia-Pacific region rose 18%, and every category in the region expanded, led by strong growth again in skincare. And finally, in North America, we are leaning into what we call our multiple engines of growth as we work to return the region to strength. So what does that mean? Our multiple engines of growth is a strategy which has powered our success over a decade, and it continues to be very effective today. It means that we are highly diversified across categories, channels, geographies, brands, consumer segments, and price points, which gives us many levers to fuel the business. In different moments over the last decade, we were driven by different engines, resulting in prestige beauty share gains each year. The engines of this moment include, as I said earlier, skincare, online definitely, and the Asia-Pacific region as a geography. We look forward to leveraging the tremendous strength of our business and driving a strong recovery in the new fiscal as the market accommodates. So how did we respond to the pandemic? To begin with, it's clear that the COVID-19 pandemic has had an impact of great magnitude on all businesses, of course, including our own. Importantly, the pandemic has exposed the interconnectivity of our businesses globally. How a company like ours, headquartered in the US, could so quickly become connected to China. And as the pandemic became more global by waves, we leveraged China's experiences and learnings to inform how we responded in other regions, including the US. We are continuing this practice of sharing learnings between our regions and affiliates to better inform our response strategies. We also closely monitor the global health crisis on a daily basis to anticipate and quickly respond to the impacts on employees, consumers, and our business partners. In addition to learning and monitoring, we implemented a number of prudent financial measures to enable us to protect our people as best as possible, while allowing for additional flexibility to manage through the volatile environment. These included advertising and promotion reductions more aligned to sales performances, a hiring curtailment or freeze, if you prefer, sharply reduced travel and meetings. We're basically not traveling at the moment, furloughs and other leaves of absence. And we also did temporary reductions in compensation for our management and board members, among other measures. Finally, one of the most important steps that we took at the very outset was establishing a robust governance framework, which allowed us to align, prioritize, and sequence our responses very quickly. This structure included working groups focused on employee welfare and public affairs, cost containment, and mid to long-term recovery plans. It enabled us to, so basically we started thinking about the shape of the recovery at the outset of the crisis. It enabled us to effectively respond to the quickly shifting dynamics and needs that we are seeing across all of our stakeholders, but specifically our employees, our communities, and our consumers. So today I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into each of these areas. As we navigate the pandemic, the safety and well-being of our employees remains our top priorities, and you hear that from most companies. We know that they and their families are relying on our business during this challenging time, and we take this responsibility very seriously. For many months, we continued to pay our employees regardless of whether they were able to work due to local conditions. We also added new healthcare services and resources for all employees, including the non-benefit eligible employees. To inform all of our decisions globally related to our employees, our business, and the safe retail practices, we convened for the first time a medical advisory board of leading physicians and health professionals. This board has been very important, has been working tirelessly with all our leaders to review current health and safety policies and protocols, providing crucial insights where appropriate, including guidance for our laboratories, our manufacturing facilities, retail stores, counters, and of course, our corporate offices and how we are going to return to work in the office. We're working pretty hard at home. Looking ahead, the Medical Advisory Board will inform long-term policies related to employee and consumer health and safety and business scenario planning from a health and welfare perspective. We also created the ELC Cares Employee Relief Fund, which is dedicated to supporting our employees worldwide who are facing financial hardship due to COVID-19. And we had literally tens of thousands of applications for help. This is made possible thanks to contributions from the company, from the Lauder family, and even from our own employees. In addition, we are committed to approaching our office and retail reopenings in a thoughtful and meticulous way, one that prioritizes the health and well-being of our employees while considering the unique and dynamic circumstances of local environments. While many employees are able to work from home, there are many others whose roles and responsibilities are dependent on on-site physical presence, manufacturing being the most obvious one. And while we are at different stages around the globe, we will lead with sensitivity and care and do everything possible to support our employees. Now on to our communities. In response to the impact of COVID-19 around the world, the company, our brands, and our corporate foundation donated more than $15 million in grants globally to help limit the spread of COVID-19 and ease the related hardships faced by the communities where we live and work. For example, grants were provided to the Red Cross Society of China, the Spanish Red Cross, and the Italian Red Cross. Additionally, we are well on our way to reaching our goal of producing 1 million units of hand sanitizers, many from our Estée Lauder and Jo Malone London brands, for frontline workers and for our own employees, of course. The production continues to this day at our facilities in the United States, the United Kingdom, Belgium, and Switzerland. We also stood a product donation steering committee, which evaluated where we could contribute products that could make the biggest difference. Individually, many of our brands have found meaningful ways to offer support through supplies, products, or donations. For example, Estée Lauder contributed 2 million surgical masks to healthcare professionals. The Clinique brand donated 50,000 skincare products to doctors and nurses in New York City hospitals who were affected, for example, by the long-term wearing of masks. MAC contributed $10 million through its Viva Glam fund. And Aveda, which is a very high-end hair care brand, launched Aveda Cares, which is a relief program to benefit independent hair salons and stylists in the United States. This multifaceted initiative will help salons prepare to recover from COVID-19 related closures. We are constantly looking for ways to give back and to support the communities in which we live and work. And now on to the consumers. We are also developing strategies to address the evolution of consumer behaviors, and they are significant. From a channel perspective, we have long believed in the excellent growth prospects of online and have been investing in it for years. With consumers gravitating towards online in fiscal 2020, our online business really surged worldwide. In our fourth quarter, as I mentioned earlier, our own brand sites delivered nearly 90% organic sales growth as we increased investments to offer the best, what we call high-touch services, and meet our consumers where they are shopping, which is now more often from home, of course. So for example, we quickly evolved our live chat capabilities and offer now video on all our platforms. We also enhance our virtual try-on to include more categories. Virtual try-on being the ability to digitally try shades of lipstick or shades of eyeshadows, etc. We rapidly deployed live streaming, which is a big factor, first in mainland China and then globally, engaging makeup artists as well as brand ambassadors for tutorials, so direct contact with consumers on the digital network. We broadened what we call our social selling activities, leveraging the product expertise of our beauty advisors in store to reach consumers directly in a new virtual way, particularly successful in China, Europe, and the UK. The pandemic has accelerated our online strategy, as many consumers are discovering online in a whole new way. This is something that we expect will continue once we emerge from this period, so it's a long-term trend. We're especially encouraged by the online growth we've seen from the ageless consumer. That's our nice way of describing people who are getting a little older, many of whom are discovering online as a platform of commerce for the first time. And last, emerging trends are increasing the appeal of skincare, which I mentioned a couple of times, with the category performing exceptionally well in fiscal 2020. Today, taking care of one's skin is an expression of self-care, and self-care is more important than ever. Consumers are actively exploring subcategories and expanding their regimens, finding peace of mind in the home rituals of routine. Our powerful roster of skincare products and brands, from Estée Lauder Advanced Night Repair to La Mer Crème de la Mer to Dr. Jart, a Korean company, tea treatment, positions us well to support this continued growth. Finally, as we are navigating through and responded to a global health crisis, calendar 2020 also marked moments of profound pain as tragic events in the US highlighted systemic racial injustice. In June, we announced a comprehensive set of commitments to act with urgency on achieving racial equity. Among our many commitments, these include listening and learning to foster a strong internal culture of advocacy and inclusion. And I've personally attended about a dozen town halls and virtual meetings to address this listening and learning. We're also focusing on talent and opportunity to ensure that we are providing the most equitable access to professional development and advancement for our Black employees. And we're investing for change through a 3-year, $10 million pledge from the company, its foundation, employee match gifts, and the Lauder family to support nonprofits and other organizations. We are committed to doing more as allies at our company and in our communities, and evaluating racial equity, not just in the US, but globally in a more profound way. So in closing, fiscal 2020 was one of the most challenging moments in our history as a public company. However, our governance structure that we implemented at the very beginning to respond to and to address the pandemic has proven to be a strategic advantage for us, and one that we'll continue to use and evolve in the future as we manage through this crisis and probably others. And out of the many lessons we've learned, the following has held true. This is the moment where leadership counts. And this is the moment where compassion counts. Right now, business is challenging, but employees, consumers, and analysts don't often remember short-term results. What they will remember is how we treated our employees and our communities, and how we executed the company values and strategy during this difficult time. They will remember our compassion and our resilience. It's also important that leaders continue to have agility and be able to flex resources toward the fastest growing opportunities, and as well pull them away when an opportunity slows down. This has been key to our company's success and something that we will continue to do moving forward. We have a program called Post-COVID Business Acceleration Program, which really aims exactly at redistributing our resources towards the fastest growing businesses and cutting off some of the businesses that are losing traction. So in conclusion, I'm confident that all of you in different countries and locations around the world will use this unique and challenging time in our history to watch, listen, and learn to lead through crisis. And most importantly, lead with compassion and agility. So Jose, that's it from me. Thank you so much. And I believe we're going to go to a Q&A session, right?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Cedric. The questions will begin to come in shortly, I'm sure, but I have a couple already here. One is the question as to what now, in retrospect, after all of these, the last 4 or 5 months have gone through, what do you wish you had done differently that you could have done earlier, maybe information you could have searched for earlier that you didn't think of at the time?
Well, that's a good question, because it brings back a lot of memories. I think the one thing we could have done differently, and I guess it applies to the whole pandemic and the crisis, is take it a lot more seriously very early on. I think it really, when we look at the statistics today and the number of infections around the world, the number of fatalities, those numbers were absolutely not in our mind at the beginning of the crisis. I don't know if you remember, but we were benchmarking this virus against SARS, which basically had less than 10,000 infections and I think 10% fatalities, so maybe 800 people. Now we're in the million. I mean, we're pretty much getting to 1 million fatalities pretty soon. So I think what we could have done, and it's hindsight 2020, we didn't know, is really deploy even more rapidly and run more scenarios in terms of how bad this could get. I still think today we haven't completely measured what the economic impact is going to be, but that's what I think we could have done better, is be a little bit more visionary in terms of how bad can this get.
Okay, I have a question from Shoko Suzuki in Japan. During COVID-19, we use less makeup and stay at home. How do you encourage consumers to buy cosmetics in that case?
Yes, and that's exactly right. Actually, I was stressing more the positive in my speech, which is the fact that our skincare category, and then I just want to remind. So we're in skincare, makeup, fragrance, and hair care. The two categories that really spiked are the ones that are corresponding to pampering habits, routines, rituals at home, etc. So we see huge consumption of skincare and actually hair care. even though people go less to hair salons, they take care of their hair. Makeup, the comment is absolutely right on makeup. Of course, you know, the makeup is very much linked to social connections. It's absolutely impacted by the habit of wearing masks. Actually, we are seeing subcategories declining pretty fast. I think our lipstick business is down 20% right now because there's no sense wearing lipstick under a mask. Whereas our eyeshadow business actually behaving much better because when you wear a mask, what shows up better is your eyes, and you know, eyes are the window to the soul. So when you cannot see the whole face, a lot of women now are compensating and trying to wear eyeshadow. In the answer of what do, we pivot to the number one channel that has most traction right now, which is really digital online social media. So we use influencers to show different makeup techniques with mask, without mask. We do the virtual try-on, which I mentioned earlier, which is a digital way where, you know, you can, it's a little bit like the Apple software where you go in and then you see your face and you can just click on different shades and virtually try them on. So we're trying all kinds of things. Mascaras are doing quite well because they are the visible part of the face. So, but overall, there's so much we can do. We are seeing a decline of the makeup category, and to a certain extent, fragrances. Fragrances, people wear fragrances, feel good, but it's mostly a social habit. So as people stay home and wear masks, we are seeing that category also a little bit declining.
I have two questions that are relating to the way you're approaching questions of social responsibility in the company. The first one comes from Carleen Nisbet, and she says, in terms of diversity, how many ethnic minorities are now employed in C-suite level or senior management at Estée Lauder companies? And then a second one from Ileana Cinturame says, regarding the sustainability issues, are you considering reducing the use of plastic in your packaging?
Okay, so two questions in one. Okay, so in terms of diversity, obviously we have work to do. To describe our company, I would say that first of all, it's a very inclusive company with amazing values. I mean, I've been in the company for 28 years and I have great admiration for the family and the way they treat people and the way they are involved with society. This is a very giving family, as you probably know, through Breast Cancer Foundation, through the MAC Viva Glam and AIDS campaigns that have given over $100 million or $200 million to different charities. So it is also a company, I would say, starting about gender. It's a company created by a woman for women. And I believe our statistic right now is that we are over 80 or 82% women. It's true that the percent of women is much higher closer to the field, so closer to the counters as you move up the ladder. But I can tell you, for example, 55% of my affiliate general managers around the world are women. Half of our brand presidents are women. And I think we're at 45% of the board of directors is composed of women. So in terms of gender, we still have a lot of work to do, but we are very involved and very engaged in continuing to raise that bar. In terms of diversity, I believe we actually over-index on Latin in the United States, but on the Black community, we are not matching the percentage of the population, which I believe is about 13%. And particularly there, we need to work on all categories of executives and move up the ranks there. So we are very conscious of it, and we are very committed, as I described in my session, but work to do for sure. I would say it's not just statistics, because what's interesting right now is that this movement is becoming very global. So as we thought we would, hire more or retain more, etc., we're actually becoming a target, and a lot of companies now are really talking to the same population and trying to acquire people to change the statistic. I think more than the statistic, what's important is we change the mindset, the culture of the company, and then it becomes a natural thing actually to have complete racial unbias. So that is not something you change. I mean, we can change statistics, but changing culture and mindset is something that takes a little bit more time. On sustainability, absolutely, this is something that we are doing, and I have to say, I would love to say that it's something that we've decided we're going to do because we wanted to, but it's something that we are being pushed to do by consumers, by communities. I mean, one example I give is I do a lot of roadshows and speak to financial investors, as do our CEO, our CFO, etc. One time with our CFO, Tracy Travis, who were in Sweden, and the first thing all the investors told us is they said, if you don't, it doesn't matter your financial result, if you do not score on ESG, we will not buy your stock. So every company in our industry right now has to work double hard on sustainability, definitely reducing our carbon footprint. We want to be carbon footprint negative, actually. We are reducing plastic, or when we do have to have plastic, we want recyclable, refillable, reusable. We just converted our number one franchise in the company, which is advanced NAD repair of Estée Lauder, from PET to glass. That's millions of units that we transfer to recyclable glass. So it's a major endeavor, and we're definitely working on it. I mentioned Aveda. Aveda is now a carbon footprint neutral because they just opened a solar, they resell energy. They just opened a solar farm outside of our offices in Blaine, Minnesota. So a lot of activities, and I could go on in terms of sustainability. It's a super interesting topic.
We have a question from Lisbeth Alvarez, who says, if you compare yourself with your near competitors, what do you think you did better in terms of tackling your revenue decreases and even helping some tough markets?
That's a good question. I mean, just a word about the competitive environment. It is a very, very competitive industry. I would say we're always in a funny position when we talk about peer group, because as I said in my introduction, we are basically the only pure play prestige luxury beauty company of our size, and we're being compared to. On one hand, big conglomerates like that do not just prestige luxury, but they do also masstige and mass. So they operate in supermarkets, grocery stores, whatever, and they sell shampoo and whatever. So that group would be, I would say, L'Oreal, Procter and Gamble, even Shiseido. Those brands are on that side. On the other side of our competitive set, I would put more the pure luxury brands that are not just beauty. They're usually fashion companies that sell beauty. So I would mention LVMH, which is one of the conglomerates with brands such as Christian Dior, Givenchy, Guerlain, whatever. And they are, by the way, also retailers because they own Sephora and they own duty-free shoppers. And then competitors like Chanel, like Clarins. So companies that really are more on the fashion side and sell beauty. So what have we done better? I mean, I would say, I would go back to the one thing that I tried to explain during my my speech, which is the concept of multiple engines of growth, which has been really promoted by Fabrizio Freda, our CEO, and this idea that with all with the complexity of our business, the number of brands, the number of geographies, emerging markets, developed markets, the categories, the channels, not all of it is going to run on all cylinders at any time. So this idea of diversifying and being able to rely on something and being able to pivot when part of our business is affected by a crisis or some external event is a really powerful mechanism and strategy. And then you can actually see it if you look at stock prices right now. Our stock has been really at nearly the highest it's ever been, in spite of the fact that we're in crisis, because the analysts are seeing this as a major advantage, is being in the right geographies. It also happens that our fastest engines of growth right now are the most accretive from the bottom line point of view. Online for us is more profitable than other channels. The Asia Pacific region and travel retail are very profitable, and some of the brands that have the best tractions right now, and skincare is the most profitable category for us. So all this combined means that the more we grow with that engine of growth, the more profitable we become and more accretive from a earnings per share point of view. And the last thing I want to mention is more cultural, is the idea of this idea of leadership. So first of all, I'm really proud of the teams that we have together around the world, and the spirit and the resilience and the collaboration that they've shown. But it's an idea that, again, our CEO, Fabrizio Freda, pushes all the time, is this idea of leadership from every chair. Leadership is not just coming from the top and being very directive. It's empowering people to go out and make decisions. And I can tell you, I worked with probably over 40 affiliates around the world. Not probably, 45 affiliates around the world and 150 markets. I do not micromanage and double check, double guess my general managers. I want to equip them with the right directions and make them leaders in their own rights over their teams, and they behave the same way underneath as well. So this idea of leadership from every chair, I think, is very powerful.
I have one suggestion for you from Alice Allen. She says, would you consider a makeup masterclass for looking good on Zoom?
Yes, and it's a great idea, and actually we've done it. So this is not a joke. Actually, if you Google it, you'll find a lot of that, or YouTube it. You'll find a lot of advice, demonstration of how to present yourself on Zoom. And actually, it's actually, talking to my colleagues, it's actually stressful for not just women, men, etc. Says, how do you look on Zoom? So that's not such a crazy question, but I would say, just to push a little bit on the idea, what we really have done is really pushing these new business models in terms of expanding the marketing techniques that we've had so far. One example is this live streaming, where we have in China, for example, we try to have people who are really gifted at selling online, and they really show the products, show how to use them, etc. And they do these seminars, and now we're seeing thousands of people following this, and we offer the ability to buy directly. We're doing also what we call social selling. So people who are gravitating more and more around social media and the classical ones, Facebook, YouTube, and YouTube particularly, then they can buy straight from our posts, and we're seeing that. And we're also leveraging the people who used to sell physically in our stores. So what we call the beauty advisors, who stand behind a counter at Saks Fifth Avenue or Selfridges in London. Their job has really slowed down, and some of them are in stores that have closed. So they actually work from home, and they continue doing their job over the digital media by using the CRM databases that we have, contacting their customers directly. And actually those sales are, the conversion on those sales is pretty high. So there's a whole bunch of new marketing techniques that are, I think, going to stay beyond the crisis.
Very good. I have a question from Yadira Maldonado Colon that says, since perfume sales are down, could there be an opportunity to offer more sophisticated fragrances for the home?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, we're absolutely seeing that shift as well. Actually, one of our brands that's doing really well in time of crisis is Jo Malone London. I'm not sure how many of you are totally familiar with the brand, but it's a great olfactive brand with a lot of fragrance selections, etc. Now that we are since the crisis started, we have seen a huge shift, and now 40% of the mix of business of that brand is on body products and home products. So a lot of candles, scents, etc. So we are seeing that trend, and we have other brands that do this pretty well. We have a brand called Le Labo, which is fantastic, as also candles and home scenting products. We have Frédéric Malle, we have Kilian, the different brands that also, we call them artisanal fragrances, and they're seeing their mix of business actually shifting to this use of products from home. Absolutely. Good question.
What do you think is most important for leaders to do when the future is unclear? Under COVID-19, I had experience to come up with scratch what we should do for employees at the same time, and at the same time had to oversee the sales trend. What would it be for the next half year? And nobody knew what would happen. Under such conditions of uncertainty, what should be the most important thing for leaders to do?
No, absolutely, and so that's exactly what I was trying to talk about during the speech. I think the first thing to do is have a crisis structure, a crisis governance. So we gathered all the leaders, we gathered them very often. So we started meeting 3 times a week at the very upper echelons of the company. I think what's really important is once you have that structure and the governance, you see more clearly. So having the right information, having your finger on the pulse, and then establishing a framework. For me, the framework that really worked for us was number one, priority on the health and well-being of our employees and our consumers. That was number one, because we are dealing with a health crisis. So it happens that in this case, it's a health crisis, so that's number one priority. The number two priority for us was absolutely lower the sales, because and in terms of cost containment, making sure that we protected cash of the company. A lot of companies that got in trouble financially, it's linked to cash. I mean, we have a saying that happiness is cash flow. I mean, so now our company is sitting on more cash than we did before the crisis. We've raised, we have about $5 billion of cash on our balance sheet, because that's super important. We looked at all the components of working capital, gave very clear targets to everybody. We stopped spending when we felt it was not needed. I mean, again, Fabricio, our CEO, has a big saying, which is put your boat in the wind, but when there's no wind, lower your sails. So that's one thing we did. And then the third thing, which I think psychologically was very important for us, and again, I would credit our CEO for that, is focus everybody immediately on the recovery. We did not wallow in negativity and crisis. We started thinking, okay, we need to be among the first companies that are going to come out of this stronger. So as soon as we see a recovery, how are we going to leverage that to gain market share? So we were not just thinking crisis mode. We were thinking, okay, this is going to end. This is not something that's permanent forever. So we will come out of this. And how do we come out of this better, stronger, and with more market share? So that changes the mindset of people, saying, okay, then we start thinking a little bit more positive. But overall, I think what's super important is the frequency of meeting, the efficiency and efficacy of the meetings, the direction that comes out of it, very clear, clarity, cascading everything to the lower levels of the company, so everybody is aligned. All of these are, I think, key elements of leadership in crisis.
Carleen Nisbet wants to know, will online drive the business going forward, or will you still rely on bricks and mortar for a significant share of your business? And can you tell us more about major changes to engage customers online when before the stores are open?
Yeah, and the answer is absolutely yes. Actually, we have a process in our company which we call Compass. So, we have a budget for 1 year, we have a strategy for 3 years, and we have what we think is a good process, which we call Compass. So Compass, again, is a reference to sailing and knowing where you're going. Compass is a 10-year forward-looking process where we look at big trends and we try to imagine where is the industry going to be 10 years from now. So by definition, when you start thinking 10 years ahead, you're going to be wrong. But you're narrowing the angle of error, if you want. Directionally, you're going to be right. And one thing we've identified for a long time is the fact that digital, online, social media, we're going to transform and disrupt our industry. What's happened with the pandemic is that this whole notion and this whole trend has just accelerated exponentially. And I mentioned the statistic for us as a company. It's 22% of our mix when it was 15% last year. So amazing growth, 100% growth in Q4. You can imagine what it means in terms of purely logistics and distribution. When you have to distribute 100% more packages through your factories, or the packages are usually much smaller, 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. And how do you fulfill that? It's a major transformation in the space of 3 months, where normally we would have 3 years to adjust to something like that. And I mentioned the marketing techniques. It's a very different way to sell online. It's also an IT challenge because we write our own code on all of our brand.com platform. So we need programmers, coders. We need to open new sites. So it's not something that just happens. And it's a transformation that we thought was going to take maybe 3-5 years. and it's accelerated to the point that now we are really, really shifting, hiring different skills.
I'm sorry I have to interrupt, but we have 5 seconds left, so I just want to say thank you very much for being with us. To you and Madeline and Paula for contributing to this session and to this program.
Thank you for having us, Jose. It was a pleasure.
It's really a great pleasure and an honor having you with us. Thank you very much, all 3 of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.